What's up, guys? Welcome to the next episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabrel, and I'm here with
Steve. How you guys doing today?
And if you notice, things are a little bit different this week. It's because I'm a little bit sick. I don't know with what, because they're not handing out tests where we're at. And so they got me in quarantine, so I figured let's do a remote show. So I hope you guys are not too upset about the lack of video content. Not to mention, we're talking to 15 people, so I'm not sure.
16 last time I checked.
Ooh, look at us.
Yeah, crawling up.
So for y'all who don't know, we're just two guys that like to talk about the biggest stories in gaming. And so this is episode 7. We haven't hit the Big 10 yet, but 7 episodes. I can't believe it's already been 7.
The real
it's
episode
really
7, because last week we said it was episode 7 on the sign-off, and it was actually episode 6, so...
It bugs me out that some of these shows lose count, and they're like, oh, is it episode 287 or 288? And we haven't even hit 10 yet. And we're just we're not sure what show it is.
Yep, exactly. It is what it is.
All right, so our first segment.
So our first segment is that we usually like to warm up is what we've been playing for the week. So what have you been playing?
So as I said last week, I beat Doom. So I was like, you know what, bit the bullet, buy Doom 2, because I still got a week before Doom Eternal's out. So I've been playing a lot of Doom 2. That's fun. It's kind of more of the same, just continuing the narrative. You've played Doom, you know exactly how it plays.
Yeah.
I've done that, continued Mega Man. I'm on Z03 now. I beat 02.
Okay.
And 01, so I'm on to 03 now. They're going way faster than I thought. I didn't realize they were kind of short games. All Mega Man games are kind of short, but especially those. I banged through 2 in maybe hour 15.
Wow.
Maybe?
Wow. That actually is pretty quick. It's quicker than I thought.
Yeah, and not to mention I had a lot of muscle memory from playing it as a child, so maybe I cheated in that regard. And then I've been playing a lot of Mafia 2, pretty much, continuing with Yakuza 0. I'm just basically playing a whole bunch of games at the same time, just trying to keep myself entertained until Animal Crossing and Doom are out.
Yeah, true. All right, I haven't been playing too much, so I finally got the Platinum in Persona 3 Dancing, which
Look at
was,
you.
it was a nice little grind. My wife was tired of hearing all the songs constantly,
I
so
bet.
I got that, immediately deleted it off my console because I was tired of looking at the thumbnail. Besides that, I picked up the My Hero One's Justice 2, the anime fighter, and it's pretty good. If you're a fan of the first one or a fan of the series in general, you'll probably like it. It's very old, classic anime fighting, so almost like a 3D plane. A lot of characters, recapping some of the last 2 seasons and some certain battles and stuff like that. But that's what I've really been playing. And then I dabbled just to get a retaste, a refreshment of The Order 1886.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I thought I liked that game more than I do. I went
Really?
back. Yeah, so I think we played it similar, around the same time when it released, I believe. Or you and I picked it up around the same time a couple of years ago. And I
2014 maybe or something like that?
Yeah, I remember enjoying it, and then when I launched it again, it looks beautiful, but man, there's just giant segments of nothing. There's I'm doing nothing for so much, and it is what it is, but it's fine. Again, I don't know what it possessed me to kind of really dig that up. Again, I'm trying to hold myself off until obviously Animal Crossing and Doom and the rest of the stuff that the spring has for us.
How'd the visuals hold up for Order? I've been curious because I have not touched it since I played it that one time.
So they look good, but they do feel like a launch PS4 game. So they don't look bad at all, but the hair mechanics aren't as crisp as you would think. It almost looks like it was built on the RE engine that Capcom's using.
Okay.
But not as sharp. There's just something a little bit sharper in the RE. Again, I don't know if it's because the Resident Evil games have that style, but it doesn't look bad at all. But the mechanics of picking stuff up and flipping them around for nothing, there's nothing on the back of the paper. I don't know what they thought, but it is what it is.
Because I remember at the time, it was you could not tell me there was anything more realistic looking than that. And it's kind of weird how time passes and then you're oh, there's a lot of flickering on those edges.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't look as smooth. It doesn't look as sharp. Because we play this on the PS4. I was thinking, oh, now that I'm on a Pro, maybe it looks sharper. I don't believe they ever did a Pro patch or a Pro update because it doesn't look like other Pro games right now.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So I got a weird segment for you guys here. Now, this is not going to be a weekly segment, but I had a random theory that pops into my head. And for y'all that don't know, I'm kind of a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. I got these I like hear these weird rumors, and I have these weird predictions in the game industry. So every once in a while, if me or Steve thinks of any weird things that we'd like to put out there for you guys, we're going to have this little segment. So this is an episode of the Conspiracy Theories with your bro. So you remember in a previous episode, we were talking about why they put BioWare, an RPG team, on a persistent online game like Anthem.
Okay.
And for y'all that don't know, even though BioWare is not a singular thing, they have like a smaller B team of newer developers that they ended up putting on Andromeda, which you could say maybe was the reason why it ended up in the shape that it did. And then there's kind of like a BioWare proper, a bigger team, that is ultimately what went on to Anthem. And so the question has always been, why did you put a traditional RPG team, going back all the way, you go like KOTOR and stuff like that, on a game like Anthem? And then I had my little conspiracy theory hat on. I was like, what if they wanted to get a game like Andromeda that fit the format of the original Mass Effect, give that to the B team, and give the main team more exposure on these type of games, because maybe they're planning to monetize it a little bit better and make it more with the times. Are they going to make Mass Effect a persistent online game with a future title? That is my theory. What do you think of that?
It sounds very likely. You got to realize that BioWare is usually under the foot of all of these other investors and stuff like that, and at the bottom line, they want to make money. So I don't, the Andromeda online aspect, did it have microtransactions?
I know they had paid DLC. I don't know if you put it in the idea of like the Battlefront style microtransactions. Not that I know of. Not that I paid for.
Okay. Because I know. So I spent a little, because I've spent way more time in Anthem than I did in in Andromeda. So I'm just trying to think where I could see those combined. Do you try and make an MMO style Mass Effect game when that game has always been just mainly a single player campaign game? I just wonder, do they take like the Destiny Anthem formula and they're like, well, people like this universe and this gameplay style makes a lot of money, so why don't we just fuse them? I could see that being EA's logic. I can see that, and I can see EA pushing for that. I just think it will backfire because again, Mass Effect's always been about the single player campaign. I think 3 is I don't remember if 2 had it, but 2 I think 2 and 3 had a multiplayer PvP stuff, right?
Yes, they did.
And I think some horde modes. So to take what people really talk about, you never hear anyone talk about the Mass Effect multiplayer. Everyone always talks about the campaign.
Well, the only thing they talk about is the fact that in 3, to get like the great ending, you do need to kind of grind online in some capacity.
Oh wow, I
don't know if you remember that, but Mass Effect 3 has a whole bunch of endings, and I won't spoil any of the endings, but there's a really good ending that you need like basically max preparation for kind of that last battle. And so in order to get the XP up to that certain amount, you can only grind so much in-game. You have to actually switch to the online stuff. The servers are still live. I chose to not do that, so I wasn't able to get the best ending.
Yeah, so your theory makes sense, though, because you got to think they want Mass Effect to really stand out, and it also needs to be revived, because like 3 really ended it, and then Andromeda didn't do much for it. So now that they have somewhat experience with the persistent online with Anthem, I just don't know if they can. I don't know if they could do it, because you also have to think they're probably trying to incorporate some of this stuff into the next Dragon Age game that's been announced. They confirmed they're making it. They don't have a title for it yet, and you got to assume someone's doing another Mass Effect, and some other team is doing something with Anthem. So you probably have all these cooks sharing spoons, in a sense that they're all going to borrow from each other. And whoever makes the most money, that's where they're going to go push for. And I think this time people are going to vote for their wallet. If they make a like persistent online Mass Effect game, I mean, people aren't going to buy into it. Just because it has a Mass Effect doesn't mean it's going to sell. I mean, Metal Gear Survive had Metal Gear on it, and nobody bought that game, and it was terrible anyway. But
True.
Yeah, so your
And
theory makes sense. I just think it'll be a big disservice to the fan. Like if they made this huge game with this huge single player campaign, and then in addition to it, an online sort of Mass Effect thing, I just think it'd be safer for them to go free to play if they did that, though.
1,000%. And also, I need to make it clear, my prediction in theory is not an endorsement. I think that would be a terrible idea, but I can 1,000% see them doing it. It's one of those cases.
Yeah, for sure. I can see it. I can see it probably happening in one way or another. But again, I guess we'll have to wait to see what. They've been quiet for a while. Besides, I think the last time we heard from them was when they said they want to relaunch Anthem or Anthem 2.0. So we'll really see what they decide to do.
Yeah, best case scenario, I think if they choose to make a Mass Effect online, or like some kind of persistent online, not looter shooter, but in that style, I'm imagining something closer to like an ESO than a Division, Elder Scrolls Online, where it's these big expansions. You can explore this massive world. All the core RPG mechanics are there. There's not this insane paywall behind it. It's been forever getting better and optimized, and I think that's kind of like best case scenario. But the problem is, I'd like that to be complementary to a core game, not in place of a core game.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so I guess we get into our first story, and it's a big story that we kind of all saw coming, but we didn't think necessarily it was going to actually happen. So E3 is officially canceled. This is the first year to not have an E3 since 1995, which is insane. That's pretty much my entire lifetime.
Yeah.
E3 organizers have announced in the following statement, after careful consultation with our member companies regarding the health and safety of everyone in our industry, our fans, our employees, our exhibitors, and our longtime E3 partners, we have made the difficult decision to cancel E3 2020 scheduled for June 9th to 11th in Los Angeles. Wow. So what do you think?
So I had to look at this in two mindsets. So the, I guess, compassionate human side of me was like, well, that's good, because as much as I'm tired of hearing about it, coronavirus or the COVID-19 has swept the world, and it's this huge thing, and you want people to be safe. I do have compassion for people who rely on E3, so not thinking just of the indie developers that pitch their games, get offer on their games, and all these secret deals that go behind stage and like behind closed doors. But exhibitors, restaurants who around the area, food people, all these different kind of vendors and stuff that rely on E3, because that was a big event. That's a lot of people that show up to these events. So I'm compassionate, and I feel sorry for the people who are losing all the money out, like from the simple janitor to the people making the poster boards are gonna lose out. But again, you want people to be safe.
And
no, go ahead.
Influencers too. I worry about those people who, like, the amount of deals that probably fell through. Not to mention, this is right after the GDC situation too.
Correct. Yep.
So I bet a lot of people were like, okay, we don't have that. At least we have E3. E3 is not going nowhere. This is the biggest event possible. They haven't moved in over 20-something years. We're good. And then for this to fall through, I mean, there's people who probably don't have publishers because of this. This is financiers. There's people who were probably looking to recruit different teams and sign different deals and try to court big name publishers. So this is a big amount of money that the game industry in and of itself is losing outside the ESA.
Yeah, no, of course. Again, like you were saying, developers may, who know, the most eyes are on you when you're on that stage. And you have your first trailer, and let's say you signed a deal with Microsoft. Now your trailer won't be publicized. There's not a room full of people watching your trailer. You have to hope that the YouTube algorithm or a good tweet is not going to announce your game. These smaller games, and who knows what else they had planned. Especially for Microsoft, I know they have pretty much really the only ones there, so they're really going to push the Xbox Series X. So again, on all that side and all that view, I felt sorry for all those people who are losing out on money and dedication and time. Again, it's good that people are going to be safe. And I know this is a minor, kind of selfish. I don't mean to be disrespectful in this way. Part of me is kind of glad it's canceled, not because of people losing money, jobs, and all that, but just because E3 does really need to evolve if they want to stand out. And now, one of the first things that almost all the companies, Ubisoft and Square and all these people were tweeting, were that, well, we're going to focus on smaller event or a digital event. Many people were talking about like almost like a PlayStation State of Play or a Nintendo Direct event, which selfishly, yes, I would like that better. I would rather like a nice solid 20 to 30 minute just Ubisoft show me what you're doing for the next few games. Again, I know that's sort of a selfish thing to say and a more of a minority feeling, because it does make me sound like, well, good that E3 is canceled. No, E3 does need to evolve, and it was evolving. So I even though E3 was canceled this year, I don't think it's the end. We're gonna get the revised E3, what E3 wanted it to become, will probably be in 2021. I don't see them not coming back.
Yeah, true. It gives them more time to kind of reinvent and take some time to reflect as to what E3 means in the modern landscape, and it definitely forces their hand, for sure. Because now, I mean, they can have a conference 2 years in the making, and everybody can have their stage show. And to be honest, yeah, we're gonna probably, and we'll get into the next story when we get there. That'll elaborate on the format it might take going forward for this year, but the direct style thing, I think, is obviously where everything's headed and what everybody's more interested in. I can do without that Just Dance intro of a million dancers and Jason Derulo coming out. I can do without that. And I think the game industry as a whole is like really unsettled by those style presentations these days, and it always backfires. They're just burning through money doing these kind of things. Yeah. So I think it's ultimately going to be in developers and publishers' best interest to just cut out the middleman, cut out these massive stage shows, and they can have these trade shows going forward where fans can come and enjoy and play games and stuff like that. But the massive stage show and presence aspect of it, save your resources, especially with the coronavirus affecting so many aspects of the pipeline, the production pipeline. Save your money and reallocate it to where it really counts. And the marketing budget being burned through on some crazy stage show with some guy playing the flute on there for Ghost of Tsushima. Like, I don't really get the point of that in the modern landscape.
Yeah, that's true. And again, it's a sad story in general, because so many people, like we were saying, did rely on it. But at the same time, look at the last couple E3s where there was like maybe one or two good announcements. But besides that, when's the last time something really big was? I mean, the Xbox Series X was not even truly announced there. They talked about it, but it was still Project Scarlet. Like, they didn't show anything. They decided to go to Game Awards. You think they would have saved that for an E3 or a private conference? But as I'm saying, the proof's there that these companies were already pulling out, and it was starting to become, more fan-based and indie-based, which is fine, but we're in a world that needs to change. And like you said, I guess, if you're ready, we'll move on to the next story to continue the conversation.
Sure. And one more thing I would like to say, just in this I'm emphasizing may be the first console generation to launch without a physical blowout of some sort.
If they launch.
It's very possible. If this coronavirus doesn't subside and a vaccine starts, really going out there in the wild, the physical in-person show, if E3's gone, then there's no way that they're going to do some crazy XO thing to show off the next Xbox. PSX is not happening in that regard, too, if things don't slow down by that point. So that means, theoretically, a direct style blowout might be the form the next-gen reveal might take, which is going to be pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, and that'll be almost be a permanent thing. Because I don't see a world where you do all these digital events, people are excited, and then you try to lock it again behind that wall of, get to E3 and you get to see it firsthand and stream it and all this nonsense. It is a tough situation for them.
True.
All right, so continue the conversation right into the second story. E3 may live on as an online experience, like we were just discussing. In a statement, the ESA said it is exploring options with our members to coordinate an online experience to showcase industry announcement and news in June 2020. So obviously this is pretty much saying they have to do something, because a lot of things we're relying on this, announcements, contracts. This is all stuff that they have prepared. People are preparing for E3 for such a long time, almost like as soon as E3 ends, people are already preparing for the next E3. So obviously we will get E3 2020 in a sense. Again, I don't know if it's going to be... This is weird because, again, Ubisoft, Square, all these bigger companies have said they're going to try to host maybe their own online thing. Do they cooperate and do a day, a weekend where they're going to just back-to-back do these big streams, which would be kind of cool. Again, it's going to be a weird time to see them I guess, test the waters, because maybe this will go and people don't really like it, and then that proves maybe we do need E3 and people still want E3. So I guess this could go two of ways. People really like it, and the ESA and all these companies decide this is a good idea. Or, for all we know, it goes vice versa. People aren't tuning in, people are watching the trailers late, people aren't watching the live streams and stuff like that, and so maybe E3 does need to come, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I was trying to think of how this actually looks in practice, because okay, you have, let's say, EA do its presentation, it releases some kind of direct style video on their channel. I'm imagining maybe you have IGN re-upload it or whatever, GameSpot and all that. You'll have Square do its own, you'll have Sony do its own. Maybe now they'll be willing to participate via video, I don't know, or Xbox and Nintendo, and everybody does their own videos on their own channel. Then what is E3 then? These are just separate videos being uploaded on their channel, and unless they're all willing to play ball and consolidate it into a single video stream coming from the ESA's website or maybe through IGN presented by the ESA, then it's not really E3. These are just 16 disconnected directs, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. It's just a compilation almost, so that doesn't make
Without
sense.
that physical haul, I just don't understand what E3 is in a digital sense.
No, yeah, that's very true, because I mean, I don't even watch. When I watch the E3 conferences, it's a stream through IGN usually, or a stream through PlayStation, because I don't like. Do the ESA have their own channel to stream? And that's a lot of bandwidth. If you're gonna try to tell everyone they have to stream through their website, and like you were saying, why even, I guess, pigeonhole yourself? If I'm Sony, I'm like, well, we can just host a 30-minute event about the PlayStation 5, and people are gonna tune in. And then, of course, you'll be, stream it on PlayStation, YouTube, and of course, probably IGN, all these other GameSpot, and all these places that have, the rights and stuff like that too. But you're right, unless you plan it out and put all the information in one spot and kind of work hand in hand. And most of these companies don't want to work hand in hand. Sometimes I know they act nice, but yeah, you are in a weird spot where what does that look like? E3, virtual E3. There's no halls, there's no giant statues of Link, so it is a weird time.
And when you think about it, a lot of what people associate with E3 is these kind of big video blowouts, and a lot of them are technically not even E3, because a lot of them are technically before the conference begins. Microsoft's not even there. They're across the street. Yep. A lot of these presentations are before, and then there's a week of on-site, in the hallways, demonstrations of games and stuff like that. So there is no real way to digitize that aspect. So E3 in and of itself cannot be digitized and cannot be made a video. You can only kind of find some way to put some big E3 umbrella over these direct style videos. So as it is right now, I actually don't know necessarily what they mean, because everybody was like, oh yeah, of course, you take it online, you make all these videos and it's fun, and you'll have these different presenters and stuff like that. But those conference style things are not technically E3. These are precursors to E3 before that week exists on the showground. So
yeah, that's true. People confuse the conferences we see, again, which usually start like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then E3 really is usually that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sometimes a Saturday.
Yes,
that's the actual E3, where you're saying conference halls, interview with developers and stuff, which is, to be honest, are the things that people watch the least of, because again, influencers and stuff like that on YouTube are there. But yeah, the big things are those conferences, which could still happen. I don't need to see the conference. With my least favorite part of those conferences are the crowds, because they're clapping in the wrong spots or they're cheering for dumb stuff. So
clapping off beat to the Doom soundtrack, no thanks.
Yeah, it's all weird stuff. So, and sometimes they're really awkward, so maybe having a more rehearsed thing with, Phil Spencer usually does okay, but sometimes they get out there and they just act so weird and awkward. I know they're reading off the teleprompter, but yeah, you're true. Those 3 days of conferences could still happen that way, and you can call it E3, but
it's not really.
Yeah,
it's not really, honestly.
Yep, that's true.
Okay, so I guess we can get into the next story. This is a big one that I did not see coming. So apparently, Reggie Fils-Aime is serving on the board of directors for GameStop. This is effective April 20th, 2020. Reggie will be joining GameStop's board of directors in an advisory position. Now, that's a key distinction. He's not going to be there fully hired under GameStop. He's kind of going to be in a supplementary role. He's also joining alongside William Simon, a former Walmart executive, and James Simonsick or whatever, the current president and CEO of PetSmart. So obviously from what I'm gaining here is they're trying to restructure and find a way of who's doing it right, what are we doing it wrong, and who can help us pivot in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So Reggie obviously played a massive role at Nintendo going back to, I believe, around 2003 or something like that. So he put in his time over there and was transformative and one of the front-facing faces over there, a face that people can trust. And if GameStop is anything, people do not associate trustworthy with them for sure. Yep. So it's a smart move on their part to bring him in. Obviously, Walmart's killing it right now, so it makes sense to bring over a former exec in that fashion. So like Reggie can serve as the way to fix their optics to the mainstream public. The Walmart executive can play the role in terms of their business structure and how to make them stop bleeding money, perhaps, and how to move things physically in a physical storefront, because Walmart's excelling at that and GameStop sure as hell is not. And then I can't speak as to what the PetSmart acquisition part of it is, but what are your thoughts on this?
So this was a very unexpected. I don't think anyone could have guessed this. And again, when this announcement came, everyone was like, "Oh, Reggie's gonna come and save GameStop." Well, let's take it easy, guys, because he's joining the board of directors and to be an advisor. He's not the president of the company now. He didn't leave this high position Nintendo, and I think he's still teaching at Cornell University. So
yes, he is.
He's not leaving that stuff to go put all his apples in GameStop. I think he was hired, so you got to assume so the way people phrase it, like, was he there? Did he own stocks in it? And there's this whole underlying thing. But regardless, he was hired as an advisor. That can only go so far. He can probably have a solid plan, but it's not going to be up to him to actually put it in effect. It has to work its way down. And one thing I can speak of as as a disclaimer, I worked at GameStop for 2 years. The connections between higher ups and actual stores are terrible. They are actually, terrible. The mismanagement. I mean, they just fired so many managers last year, and a lot of them were problem managers. But stores are closing constantly. There's that whole thing. People were scamming them with stores closing, selling consoles for cheap, and then you could trade them in elsewhere for higher. There's a lot wrong with GameStop. Reggie is, not only a good icon, because people are gonna, he's so mean in a way. He's like a big meme, my body is ready, and this whole aspect of him. So it looks good on paper. I just think this company is suffering from something way more than they probably let Reggie know. So like, he's probably going in there and being like, "What are you guys doing?" And he's probably looking at everything they decided to do and how they're not even focusing on games anymore. It's all T-shirts and like, call your local GameStop and what do they say? They don't say, "Oh, pre-order Animal Crossing." It's, "We take tablets and phones." Yeah, okay, so does every other tech store, and booths and malls and all these other places will also take phones and tech. So I think a restructuring is what they need. I just don't see exactly what Reggie can do to, like, what's he gonna do to restructure it in a way that GameStop's successful again.
Yeah, and I mean, first off, yeah, you're right when you bring up the fact that he's not CEO, he's not president, so his effect on the company could be for the positive 100%, but I don't know how transformative it's going to be. He has immense business acumen, so having him there in president, even in an advisory role, will be to GameStop's benefit as long as they're willing to listen to him. But obviously, there's some degree of massive toxicity going on the higher up level of GameStop. I mean, they're bleeding money. They're making peculiar choices. Just the whole culture there is really messed up on a top level. I can't speak on the bottom level. I've never worked in a GameStop, so I'm not going to even get into that. That has its own, amount of issues, and a lot of them are kind of reactionary to the choices made on top. So starting from up to that point, I mean, if you want a company to make a full 180, then I feel like you need to reassess what brought them into that position in the first place. And obviously there are more organic explanations for that, just the entire industry shifting digital, but there was obviously a reaction to that reality that put them in a way worse position. And so unless they're willing to clear house on an executive level, I don't know how much Reggie can do. Again, he's a brilliant business mind, an amazing face of the company for Nintendo, but he's not a miracle worker. And I just don't see him sitting down with the accounting department and be like, all right, let's get our numbers here, and if we do A, B, and C, we're gonna turn around and we'll have a percentage increase. I just don't see that. There's no way, and no one man I think can do that. So I think this is a step in the right direction, perhaps, but I think at this point we have every reason to believe that GameStop's fate is sealed, and it's just a game of how long do they have. Can Reggie buy them time? I don't see the situation. I'm not convinced the fact that Reggie will be the saving grace for GameStop, just because I feel like GameStop's kind of like that figure speaking from already beyond a foot in the grave, sitting in the grave 6 feet deep, just the dirt ain't on them yet. And then Reggie's putting out a hand and be like, can I help you up? But he hasn't pulled them out yet. So these people are like, Reggie will save GameStop. I think it's a little early to say that. I think this is a good step. Who knows? This could be the Phil Spencer to Microsoft, and they could completely switch the direction. But again, Microsoft was not in GameStop's position when Phil Spencer came in, or took the role he took. So I wish them nothing but success, and I feel like in many ways this seems kind of like a backwards move for Reggie, coming off of Nintendo, then moving into the college scene to teach. Why you'd go to GameStop? I don't know.
Yeah, that's everyone always was suspect about Reggie. They're like, is he actually gonna go to Sony or a small indie developer or something like that? And I'm like, no, to us it seemed like he retired, and he was like, all right, now he's teaching. Is something he likes to do, interacting with people at the university, and then joins the board of directors at GameStop. I was like, GameStop's running at like $3 and something per share. Like, that company is suffering
and going down.
Yeah, it's not somewhere you think you're like, this is where we're gonna prosper here.
However, he did release a statement, I think, when either he was asked about it or he just wanted to provide supplementary material, and he was saying basically like a healthy GameStop is good for the industry. And especially when you look at Nintendo's emphasis on physical hardware counting. I mean, they were really late to the game and even counting digital hardware. So or digital software sales. So they're obviously, they kind of go hand in hand with GameStop. They've relied on them in a heavy capacity. They were not playing ball with Amazon for a long time. So they obviously have some kind of relationship there. So I don't necessarily not believe him when he says that, like, he has a real vested interest in the success of GameStop, because I feel like Nintendo relied on them for so long and they had such a kind of like side-by-side position and relationship with each other. So I guess maybe in his brain it's like, I'm not working at Nintendo anymore, but he wants nothing but success for that, and maybe in his mind that means ensuring the success of GameStop as well, because they'll move in concert with one another. So yeah, that could be the only way I could kind of make sense of it in my head.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, again, GameStop is, it's been such a staple for so long, and the hardware numbers, as much as people do buy things online, like you're saying, Amazon's not always the most reliable, because I've pre-ordered consoles on there. When the Switch originally came out, I pre-ordered one at GameStop.com and one on Amazon. Amazon did not deliver, so luckily I had my backup at GameStop, and this was way before I was working there, so it was no secret hookup. Like, I pre-ordered it online, and GameStop shipped it. Day one, it was there. And Amazon let me through, never even asked me. They never even even told me. They're just like, yeah, we just don't have them. So, GameStop is a big player when you think that they're moving consoles, because people like to go in stores and buy them. Though you have Walmart, Target, people think I need to buy a game system, I'm going to GameStop. So
yeah, and you can't necessarily let the games industry and games journalists and people in California and New York necessarily dictate the narrative on what GameStop means to people as a whole. Again, internet infrastructure in some places is vastly overstated. Some people are just not buying like that. Some people live in real rural areas that Amazon might not be the easiest to deliver to. So GameStop means a lot to a lot of people in certain places. Not to mention, a lot of people have real kindred, nostalgic connections to that midnight launch. That's still a thing that happens for some people. And though I'm not the biggest fan of GameStop, I don't go there very often, I know what it means to certain people. And I know that the collapse of GameStop, not only on a fan's perspective, but all the people who work there, to this day. And some people really love their jobs there and have a real vested interest in the success of GameStop. We can't necessarily act like that's not a thing just because for a good chunk of the population in the United States and maybe even abroad, GameStop just don't mean anything to us anymore. We kind of looked at it as a relic of the past. To some people, it's very much a necessity and a well-connected part of their game's experience.
Yeah, that's true, because even with the rise of all these other retro game stores and stuff like that, they aren't, for launch titles, they're not there. So maybe, again, to kind of just recap on that, yeah, Reggie hopefully has the right idea, because things need to change, because things have changed. GameStop was really popular for pre-orders and collector's editions and midnight launches, and they don't do any of those, really. Like, they don't get many collector's editions unless you're the one who pre-orders it, and they don't host midnight launches at all anymore. I mean, while I was working there, for certain games, we did 9 o'clock releases, like God of War, Red Dead. Besides that, you had to wait till the next day, and it's just in a different... It's stuck in a transitional period, and maybe Reggie will be the one to kind of just give that good push to where it needs to be.
Yeah, and I mean, I the last thing I want to see is GameStop fail, because I do agree with Reggie in some ways that I think that not only does GameStop have a place in the games industry, but a healthy GameStop is good for the industry to have that kind of physical in-person component, but they need to change their business model and find a way to adapt to the times. I don't necessarily know how that looks. If I had the answer, obviously I'd be one of the first people to figure it out. I don't know necessarily what that looks
true.
like.
Again, I even from, I guess, the quote-unquote inside, I wouldn't even know how to fix GameStop. So,
well, I wish them the best, though.
Yeah. So, moving on to the next story. A weird collaboration that I thought was fan fiction and a fake mock-up. A Lego Mario collaboration. So, Lego Group announced a collaboration with Nintendo. Unlike their typical playsets, however, this one will be interactive, so Mario can collect coins and levels created with Legos. This comes from Game, the UK website Game, and this was... I still almost don't understand this. So it's a Lego set. You not even true Legos, but it's like an altered Lego set. You build and collect digital coins and do what?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, Nintendo made boxes work, so I have no clue how this technology
That's true.
works.
They're selling cardboard, and people are people are buying those. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures now, and yeah, okay, it looks okay. Legos. It is what it is. I just don't think. It almost feels like they were going to do a almost like toy to life thing at one point, and this is probably just a remnant of that. Like, what are you doing with the coins? Are you going to upload them somewhere? I don't know. I thought there'd be more of a collaboration with this and then like Mario Maker or some sort of hand-in-hand thing. But
and perhaps that's coming. Perhaps.
Again, and most of this was like semi-announced, semi-almost leaked in a sense. But I just don't really get it. I was like, all right, they look fine. I probably will not, after today, ever think about it again.
Yeah, well, for me specifically, I mean, I'm not going to buy this. I'm not really into toys like that, so I'm not the target consumer. However, if you look at big names in the children's game toy area, I mean, Nintendo and Lego are pretty much as big as it gets. So the fact that this hasn't happened sooner is nuts to me. And when I read this, I'm like, okay, these playsets are going to be incredibly popular with some people. And again, I don't necessarily have my finger on the pulse of like the toy industry. I don't pay attention to it like that. But again, if Nintendo to some extent can make boxes work, if you could tell a kid that you could build the Mushroom Kingdom, Peach's Castle, like all these things, like, you know how big that's going to be for some people? Yeah. And not to mention, I didn't just stop with playsets. This told me, oh snap, imagine a Lego Mario game, because you know how successful the Lego games are. If that collab happens in the game industry, like, that's gonna murder.
Yeah, so that's where I initially saw this. I kind of thought this was going there, and again, it still could be, because a full like fledged announcement hasn't really happened yet. A Lego Mario game will sell like hotcakes. Like, I don't even know how to really explain it. That will fly off the shelf so quick, because anything Mario sells, and usually anything Lego sells, you put them together. I mean, look how many copies of Minecraft sold on Wii U and Switch just because it had that Mario skin. So
yeah,
pushing
it's
that
like a match made in heaven because like if
exactly.
you look at the Lego games, it's a whole bunch of characters, it's a whole bunch of different places to go over spanning different types of narrative. It's goofy, it's humorous. I mean, that's Nintendo in a nutshell right there. They got a million different characters they can use, a whole bunch of different set pieces they can use over different games, just playing around, throwing each other off the cliff. Like, there's just random stuff that you do in Lego games that, like, it's built for Nintendo. So that's the place I'm going to. I don't know if that's in the cards right now. They haven't said anything about it, but I think they'd be foolish not to make that the next step after they have the physical playsets out and selling and stuff.
You gotta assume that's like, if not already in the works.
All right, so on to the next subject. We finally have confirmation of a rumor that's been going around for months now. The 2017 Sony exclusive by Guerrilla Games, Horizon Zero Dawn, is being ported to PC. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, Death Stranding's coming to PC, so it's not the first. Again, keep in mind, Kojima Productions is not a first-party Sony team. I think they just help finance the game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, they were
so this will be one of the, if not the, first-party Sony exclusive to come to PC. So what do you think about this?
So I think this is a smart move. I know there was that weird fanboy rage nonsense that was going on.
Oh yeah, they're crying.
They're crying. Oh, what's my point of this? Guys, this came out in 2017. It's gonna be almost 4 years old at the time this releases, and even though it was obvious, Sony still had to come out and say, listen, we don't have plans to do day one, day and day, like release day on PS5/4 and PC. I have no problem with game after 4 years after it's really sold all it's gonna sell. I mean, Horizon, you can get. I've seen the Horizon Complete Edition for like $10, brand new, with the DLC and everything. So good. Let Guerrilla get more money for it on PC, because they're probably gonna sell it on PC like $30-$40, which is way more than they were making on the 3 sales of it at $10 right now. So I don't know why people were so upset again. I know others, people were like, oh, it's not the first one because Death Stranding's coming. The Detroit and all those games, Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain came, but those again were exclusives, but they weren't.
Yeah, they're not first party.
Yeah, they're not first party. So that was all just contracts and stuff. I think this is absolutely fine. I think it will be a while before you see other bigger ones. I would probably assume Spider-Man would come to PC way before like God of War did, just because of
probably
because of the Marvel license and stuff like that. I've got no problem with this, honestly. I think this is good. The companies are going to make more money, and more people are going to be able to play it. And when Horizon, the sequel, comes out, it's going to be on PS5 only for apparently 4 or 5 years. So if you're a PC player who really loved it, you're going to go buy a PlayStation. So that's really where the marketing is, and I just think it's super smart.
Yeah, I won't get into the fanboy aspect of it. They're going to get pissed no matter what. This is kind of like a tale as old as time. People trying to justify the value proposition of the console that they bought because they don't have all the consoles, and it makes them feel better that they chose the right console. We've seen this before. It goes into the console wars, so I won't even get into them. But yeah, no, I ultimately think this is a good thing. More people being able to play a game doesn't hurt anybody else. I'm pretty platform agnostic. I kind of play everywhere except for PC. So just opening that player pool of people being able to play, like, I have no problem with that. Plus, we know the game's going to look gorgeous on there without any real hardware capping the abilities of that game. I'd love to see what they're able to do with it. I'd love to see the mods and the different stuff that's going to come out of the PC community. And if this is the first of many or just an isolated event, I'm kind of fine with it both ways. Again, if you want a PlayStation, you're going to buy a PlayStation. And I don't know that many people are not going to buy PlayStations because some of these games are going to be available on PC. And again, Sony is not treating this the same way as Microsoft. I think there's a strong argument to be made about maybe Microsoft making a misstep by completely diminishing the reason to buy an Xbox from the position they are in the industry right now.
Correct.
That's an entirely different discussion. And I think that holds maybe some weight. But Sony, I mean, again, God of War, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, all these games they're not on PC right now, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. And Horizon, a really old game that's not really making that much money for Sony right now, gaining a little bit of extra, money on the side there from the PC people, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if you want to see a healthy, vibrant Sony, I think this is a way to do it, to make a little bit of money off essentially a dead game. And it also boosts the player pool and excitement for a potential sequel that you can also make a PlayStation exclusive. So all the people who absolutely love it, yeah, they're going to jump onto PlayStation to play the sequel. So even if it's everything's timed exclusives going forward, if you make that window big enough, like, I think that, if anything, makes the PlayStation ecosystem stronger.
Yeah, for sure, because this isn't hey guys, after 3 months of it being on PlayStation 5, it's coming to PC. No, you're looking at almost 3 to 4 years. Like, that's a long time. Like, if you paid for $60 for it, you're not gonna feel cheaped out that you can get it 4 years later for cheaper. So again, it just works, and I think, the sales number is going to show, because if this comes to PC and nobody buys it, then Sony's going to be like, alright, so we don't have to do this. But I mean, the Master Chief Collection on Steam is constantly in the top selling, because it's the first time Halo is on PC. Well, except the first Halo that used to be on PC, but the Master Chief Collection coming to PC was a big deal, and it's still, I mean, it jumped charts, and that game is not complete on PC, because right now you only can play Halo Combat Evolved and Halo Reach. You can't play the rest of the Halo games on PC right now, but yet people still bought that bundle. So the proof's in the pudding. People want their games as many places as they can.
Yeah, they'd be stupid not to take that money at this point.
Of course.
Just why? Leave it sitting in the backlog to do some weird false, like, oh, it's only available on PlayStation. But like, imagine how many games are just kind of sitting in the vault untouched that they could just pop on PC day one, and they could sell upwards of 1 million copies and make so much money and not do much adjustments to the port, because again, the PS4 and Xbox One architecture we're not on a cell processor anymore.
Yeah.
So these ports are not like incredibly difficult to do like they would have been at one point. So, like, again, it's free money practically. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's pretty much. Again, I don't know what the big fuss was. I'm like, this is good. And it's also been rumored for, like, half a year now. And Sony never denied it, so that's how we knew it was true from the get-go.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, so going on to another new kind of rumor/leak. The punk band The Death Set tweeted, just licensed 5 new songs to Tony Hawk 2020 game. You'll be hearing this shit soon. I don't know if you know this, but there's not a Tony Hawk 2020 game announced.
No, there is not.
So this comes obviously from the band who just said they licensed these 5 songs. I highly believe this. This is probably was going to be an E3 announcement, or somewhere it was going to be announced. I'm surprised because of the last Tony Hawk Pro Skater, which was Pro Skater 5, which was a colossal flop and failure because they were just rushing a game out because it was their last year with the license. Apparently Tony Hawk signed a license with somebody to launch another game, and I guess that's good. We're in a drought. People are really asking for skating games. People wanted a Skate 4. People wanted a real Pro Skater 5, and we got a half attempt on that. And there's those all small indie games, like there's that Xbox Skate game that's coming up, but nobody really cares. People need a big licensed title. I'm super surprised EA has not jumped on this, so I just don't see who would have teamed up with Tony Hawk to do another this game after the call. That name's kind of tainted now, because if out of all the skating games, besides like the original Pro Skaters and like the 2 Thug games and American Wasteland, Tony Hawk games aren't that great. I also want to say that this may not be what people are thinking, because Tony Hawk constantly releases games mobilely, like on iPhones and stuff like that, and there's sometimes licensed music in that. So just because I don't believe he said it was necessarily a console game.
No, he didn't expand on what the game would be.
Yeah, so Tony Hawk's released a few of them on the phone with licensed music, and I never played them. I barely see them chart on the App Store, so yes, there's another Tony Hawk game. I'd be happy if it was a full console one, but I probably more believe it's going to be like a small iOS or Switch kind of game.
Yeah, I'd like to hope that this is kind of like a big scale thing, but again, yeah, the licensed music thing doesn't necessarily give away the extent and resources behind the game. It could be anything from iOS. It could be a kind of who knows, a cartoon Switch port. Like I don't know what this could be. I'm hoping for a full-scale thing, maybe a Pro Skater 6 with actual people caring about it. I don't know if Activision, if they re-signed with them. I don't know what this looks like, but I knew it wasn't the last we see of Tony Hawk games. I mean, there's too much money behind that name, and the kind of culture that's been established behind the legacy of that name, beyond the man himself, in the game industry. So, in some sort, I see a big scale console-based Tony Hawk game coming. Is this it? I couldn't tell you. I don't know when or where we're gonna hear about this. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 was disastrous in its own regard, but I don't think it's necessarily disastrous to the point where they're so in the hole that they're never willing to touch it and it's a pariah in the industry. Those original games were too good and meant too much to too many people for them to completely not shoot their shot again.
Yeah.
And I think if Mass Effect can come back, so can they. 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And again, this is not the first we hear of a Tony Hawk game. I think 2019 we heard some rumors. I think there was a couple people who had their hands in a little bit of the Pro Skater 5 who had left sometime during the development, and were like, no, we're trying again. I don't know what they decided, but again, this is not the first time we hear the rumor. And actually, now that I think that we've heard this for so long, you gotta assume it's actually a console game, because iOS games, they kind of crap out pretty quickly.
Yeah, they're fast turnaround.
Yeah, so thinking now, I kind of take my statement back. So it probably is a console game.
Now, whether it'll be good or not, I couldn't tell you. Who knows? It could be a next-gen launch game, and they've put a lot of resources and time into it for quite a while. They have a great soundtrack, then maybe they could recapture some of that. Or it can come back doing the exact same thing it used to do, or with maybe small tweaks, and we can bump into another Rock Band 4 Guitar Hero situation, where the landscape is just not there for it anymore, and so nobody cares. That could happen too.
Yeah, but regardless, we're going to play it, because why not?
100%. All right, so we got a big story here. Another rumor. So we have a possible, and again, emphasizing rumor, Sony Konami collab for a new Silent Hill or Silent Hills. A Rely on Horror, a website dedicated to all things horror and gaming, has stated that sources confirmed that Konami and Sony are working on 2 new entries for the revival of the Silent Hill franchise. Now, there's 2 titles that are being rumored. One with Masahiro Ito. He's the creator and designer for the first 4 Silent Hill games. Keiichiro Toyama, the director and writer for Silent Hill back on the original PlayStation. And Akira Yamaoka, the composer for a majority of the franchise. So that's the first one. So it looks like they're kind of pulling a lot of the veteran team from the originals to harken back to that. And then the second title that's being rumored is some kind of reemergence of the canceled Silent Hills with Kojima game, which is the one that I do not believe for a second that's ever seeing the light of day again. But apparently there's rumors that Sony is trying to patch up things with Kojima and Konami. What are your thoughts on these 2 games?
So this was a tough one to kind of break down when I saw it. So yes, you will get another Silent Hill game. Now, and it's probably more of in line with the first half of the articles, where you gotta assume they looked what happened with RE2 and RE3 remake and was like, yo, we could do that. And so you're probably more in line with that, because I know a couple, even I think months ago, there was like the kind of talks of like a choice-based Silent Hills game, which would be fine as long as it's accompanied by a real Silent Hills game or a remake of Silent Hills 1, 2, or 3, whatever they want to do. So that's gonna be fine. You're gonna get more Silent Hills eventually. The the rumor that PlayStation is gonna try to patch things up with Kojima, I don't think people understand how bad that falling out was. They banned Kojima from going to award shows and conferences and all this stuff. He couldn't talk about Metal Gear 5, and even to this day, he does not talk about Metal Gear Solid 5. He does not and has not discussed, at least publicly, what even happened between him and Kojima and Konami, and why Kojima Productions closed and everybody left. Nobody knows what really happened. I highly doubt we'll see a Silent Hills game from Kojima. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love it, and I think the best way for them to ever, if this was true, the best way to announce it is to just put PT back on the PlayStation Store and say nothing. Just put it up, put PT back up. If you were going to redo Silent Hills and bring Kojima back and Norman Reedus back, just put PT back up there, because that'll say everything you need to hear. Besides that, I really highly doubt it. Kojima just had the freedom to do what he wanted with Death Stranding, And even though commercially it hasn't hit crazy records, people really like that game. Some people didn't. But having that freedom to then be pigeonholed almost back into making a game you didn't want to make. Kojima was done making Metal Gear games since like Metal Gear Solid 2. So for him to be like, yeah, no, come back and let's make another Silent Hills game, I don't really believe it too much.
Yeah, you made a lot of great points there, and there's a lot to unpack here. But basically, the way I look at it is, one thing you have to look at it as Konami's willingness to even invest in new big properties, because again, they make so much money abroad in Japan with a whole bunch of different types of diversified incomes through pachinko machines and all different types of stuff they're involved in. So, and then when they do release games, it tends to take the form of like the Castlevania collection, of the Konami arcade collection, and the Contra collection. So they're tapping into their backlog in that regard. So first off, I call into question their willingness to even invest in big games like that, like a new Silent Hill. Then bringing back the old team for that first game, again, the Resident Evil is a perfect analog for that. Something to take the form of that, I would think is more likely. Kojima is a whole nother beast. At this point, yeah, he's set up Kojima Productions. He has the relationship with Sony. He's expressed his willingness, and now finally has the money behind it off of Death Stranding to explore other avenues like movies and stuff like that. Back in his Metal Gear days, he's always expressed the fact that he hates tackling things he's done already, and he's always tried to reinvent things, which is why Metal Gear has changed so much. And if you look at stuff like Zone of the Enders, he's always tried to do very different things than he's done before. So the likelihood of him going back to an old relationship that had soured, to go back into a franchise that he tried already and things got really nasty, and him and Norman Reedus created something else together that is amazing in its own regard. I just don't see him treading that old ground. And again, you can make the argument it's not old ground because that game never came out, and so maybe that's still something he has some investment to create to the full extent that he had imagined it, perhaps. But there's just no way. I could see a scenario where Sony tries to play middleman and better that relationship, but I just don't think it's in either their best interest to do that anymore. I think Konami can make plenty of money with the backlog they have without ever investing a dime back into a Kojima project or anything new for that matter. Reskins and remasterings and just re-releases of old properties can make them all the money they need to continue being a viable company without ever having to even go down that. I don't know what happened with that relationship. For all we know, we all put the blame and onus on Konami. Who knows? Maybe he just wasn't easy to work with. Maybe he didn't hit the deadlines they wanted to do. I don't know where that went. They were obviously super petty after the firing. And I'm not going to go back into the Kojima-Konami thing. That's a whole nother beast that all of us don't really have enough info to really draw any concrete conclusions on. But I just don't see that Silent Hills thing ever coming back. Not to mention the whole nightmare with the taking the license away and you can't even download it anymore and it's locked on certain things. They obviously, up until fairly recently, wanted nothing to do with that, to the point where they don't even want it being acknowledged. So for them to suddenly be like, okay, never mind, let's actually release that game. Let's actually patch things up with the guy that we're sworn enemies with not too long ago. It just seems unrealistic. It seems like a lot of wishful thinking. But again, them bringing back the old team, I 100% believe that. They have a lot of profitable things. But again, I don't think this takes a form as a new Silent Hill game. I think maybe this is just a reimagining of the classic Silent Hill release from PlayStation 1.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the smarter option too, because you don't want to just come out and release like Silent Hill 6. Because people are going to be like, what are you talking about? Because that is not a property that people know anymore, unlike Resident Evil and stuff like that. So it'll probably just be Silent Hills. Yeah, hopefully the remakes, because that will reintroduce it to everyone. And yeah, I guess in a fantasy realm, I would love for Kojima I would love to see his take on it, just because of the people he had. Like, didn't he have a little bit of like Guillermo del Toro on there and all this kind of stuff? But,
yeah, pretty much everybody he was tied to in Silent Hills, a lot of them ended up working with him fairly closely in Death Stranding. So
yeah, for sure.
I just don't see the need for it for him.
So what do we? Because I know Norman Reedus came out and was like, no, yeah, we're just talking about being able to work and other things, Norman Reedus has to be getting expensive now. Because I even know AMC's dropping big bucks to keep him on The Walking Dead.
Oh, no doubt.
So you got to assume maybe how Kojima was able to bring Norman Reedus into the gaming world, I think it can work reverse, where now Norman Reedus can partner up with Kojima to produce, I don't know, a Netflix show or something like that, because the connections work both ways that way. I would suspect that way before we see him even make another game. We definitely get another passion project from Kojima elsewhere, comic, a book, a YouTube series, a Netflix series, an anime or something like that, way before we get another game.
Oh yeah, the Kojima Reedus movie comes way before we see any kind of Silent Hill Reedus project that they've tried before already.
That's what I would think and assume. That's why this rumor, when I see this rumor, I'm like, sure, that'd be great, but I doubt it.
Yeah, so that's that. Yeah. So you want to get into the loose topic?
Yep. So the loose topic of today, we chose to go franchises that need gameplay changes. And this one was actually a little hard. I can't remember.
Yeah, me too.
Did I come up with this idea?
Yes, you did.
I would. So it was actually kind of hard because I'm trying to think of a franchise that needs change. And I don't mean a complete change. I'm not going to say take, I don't know, Need for Speed and make it an RPG or anything like that. Or like don't make Need for Speed a turn-based game. So I chose ones that just need big changes and more tweaks. So my first on my list was the Fallout series.
Okay.
So I think it's time that Fallout either dials it back to its roots a little bit more of that decision-based, not turn-based necessarily, but RPG. I mean, it's hard to... They gotta go Outer Worlds style, I believe, because they try to keep going bigger maps, but it's always empty and boring, and it's, half and half. I think they either have to go more the Outer Worlds style, where it's like a more small, linear, explorative shooter, or they go full shooter. And I don't know what that means with Bethesda. I don't know. They already have kind of Doom in their wheelhouse.
I think it means Rage 2, probably.
Yeah, Rage 2, which probably Rage 2. I think Fallout just it's in a need of it needs something, and man, that franchise is dying, and it sucks. That's how much of a huge Fallout fan I am.
Oh, absolutely.
And so to see that franchise dying and not do anything well, it doesn't do shooting well. That's why VATS exists. Let's all admit it. The shooting in Fallout, even though Fallout 4 is pretty good, but VATS exists because the shooting was so bad in the old Fallout games. So work it better. Do something. Do you make it more of an action RPG almost style, or do you go full shooter? I think it needs to make one of those decisions instead of trying to be a half and half. Like, you're doing this half thing, you're not doing anything properly. You need to just full-fledged make a good game with Fallout. Stop trying to cover all your bases. Stop that stupid take those mechanics out. They're terrible. I don't understand them, man. How to make the lights work so your giant Fallout boy, Pip Boys guy can light up is annoying. Nobody likes that. They did it for the trophies. Stop it.
Yeah, and I mean, the ironic thing is Fallout kind of already had its big gameplay shift already in the past from the jump from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of ironic that you fast forward now and it's kind of like, oh, they've gone stale again. And again, don't get me twisted. The jump from 2 to 3 was not because that isometric view PC-based RPG style was getting old. That's not the case. But now, fast forward, that innovative jump that they made in 3 has gone really tired. So yeah, I'd like to see them try something. I don't necessarily know what that looks like, but they obviously need to switch up something after the reception of 4 and how every time they release one, everybody likes the Obsidian ones better. It's tough.
Exactly.
All right, so I chose a weird one that I doubt you thought of, but it's Kirby.
Wow.
Now, if you think, when was the last time you played a new Kirby game that was phenomenal? Really think back.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest. Every Kirby game since, I think, forever. But
the Game Boy Advance, maybe?
Besides Air Ride.
It's been a very long time.
Game.
And they've tried out a lot of different styles and stuff. And the problem, I kind of hear the same thing over and over again. It's like, it's a good game. It's good. It's mid. It's all right. That was kind of what Star Allies was. That was just the 3DS one, just one after another after another. And they need to figure out something. And I feel like they either need to put the resources to make it something like a Kirby Odyssey type situation and really tap into all the cool worlds they've set up with and put some time and effort behind it. But like, obviously what they're doing, in my opinion, is really not working. It's not that Kirby is like a joke now. I wouldn't put it in that. And again, no offense, but it's not in the Sonic lane yet, where people don't take it seriously.
Yeah,
it's more so in the lane where people don't really even think about it anymore. People know Kirby because of Smash Bros, not because of Kirby's games in and of itself, which is a bad situation to be in. Not to mention, when you're having new releases, this is not a Captain Falcon where there are not F-Zero games coming out, so people are like, they know him from Smash and Smash only. There's nothing really to compete with that.
that's true.
Kirby has games that are coming out fairly regularly. There was the kind of joke where it's like, if a Kirby game comes out, that's the end of the life cycle. But no, Star Allies came out not too long ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
I want to say, not too far from launch.
No one talks about it whatsoever. And a week after it came out, people were like, oh, yeah, it was fine. And I mean, there was a phone game that came out not too long ago. Nobody talked about it. It was kind of like a boss rush mode version. So, like, no one cares about this franchise. And the fact that this is one of the best, in my opinion, worlds that Nintendo has to offer, and they're not really, I think, putting the care it has behind it. I think this needs a significant gameplay change, a significant investment from Nintendo's side to really make it succeed. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, that's true, because, like I was saying, those games are so cut and paste. It's the same. They usually add 1 or 2 new powers, but even like Star Allies, they brought the friendship thing, which was seen in 3 other games. The worlds look the same. I mean, how many times do we have to fight Wispy Woods? You know, suck the apple, throw the apple at him.
Same tree, same characters.
Exactly. And, you know, the same enemies. A couple Wallabies, couple, you know, fight a Meta Knight because he can't decide if he's good or bad because, I don't know, he's emo. That's true. That's a franchise that, yeah, I'm surprised I didn't even think of that one because that game, it's the same game over and over.
And if they're willing to put resources into Toad and Yoshi, these supplementary characters, one of the main characters like Kirby, going back all the way to the NES, should get that same treatment in my view. If the Donkey Kong got that treatment, I feel like, and they changed his gameplay and they created something amazing that ultimately culminated in a game like Tropical Freeze, I think it's about time that Kirby gets its just dues and gets their game where it's like, man, Kirby was meh for a long time, but this game is really something and one of the best offerings on whatever console it ends up coming out for.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's time they get so less protective about it because they always build it in-house. Give it to a studio that you trust to do something different with them. I mean, they've done that with like Retro, and that's been well for them for the most part. Yeah, find a company you trust. I don't know exactly who you want to give it to.
Who does it now? Is it HAL?
I think it's still HAL Laboratories that always does it. And I think they've done almost every single one. I know Sakurai may have worked on just a little bit of it, you know, throughout the years. Give it to somebody else. Someone else who can, you know, have them do a pitch. We'll see who, because you gotta assume there's probably another one coming eventually.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But I don't want the same one again. I already have Star Allies. Why do I want?
Unfortunately, I feel like it will be because I just don't know if the demand is there. But it's one of those things. It's like you don't want to put a lot of resources into something there's not a lot of demand for, but you won't create demand unless you give them a reason to demand it, which kind of requires some kind of blind faith investment on Nintendo's part.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Yeah, we'll see. Kirby. So next, the franchise I decided is one I kind of hold. I was looking at all of my, because as we know, Capcom is my favorite developer. So I'm looking at the franchises there, and most of them you really can't change. Like you really can't change Street Fighter's formula and stuff like that. But one that I think could use a new branch, not necessarily renovate the regular version. I think it's time for a new Mega Man.
Okay.
I guess spin-off. I don't know what you really classified it. And we've seen them do this before. Obviously, Mega Man to Mega Man X was more of a spiritual successor, but we've seen them go the 2 Mega Man Legends games. We saw them do the NT Warrior and the Star Force, which was kind of more the same. But then we did see the Zero spin-offs and the ZX, which you're playing through right now. I think it's time we get a better third-person action Mega Man game, because there was the one a long time ago that ended up leaking for a little bit. There's a few screenshots, and this I'm talking years ago. I think it was for Wii. It was supposed to be, and I think Mega Man in that style doesn't have to be as like. I don't want. Remember that Bomberman game for Xbox 360?
Yeah, the super realistic one.
I don't want that. Don't get me wrong. I don't.
That's horrifying.
I don't want that. But I think we're in a time where Mega Man 11 came out and it was fine. It did a lot of the same mechanics. It added the speed up and the slow down stuff that people didn't really like because it wasn't true Mega Man. Bring those ideas over to what you've been doing with all your other games. I know people probably won't like it, but I mean, the one time they were doing the Mega Man Legends 3, that ended up getting canceled. The demo ended up getting canceled, and fans were riling up for that because that style, with some tweaks, could be a really fun game. I don't see why not. I don't know if you want to go third-person shooter exactly for it, but a nice blend of certain 3D areas. You throw a couple of those old 2D sections in it, because some of that stuff in Mega Man X 7 and or is it 7 and 8? Yeah, 7 and 8 with Axel and stuff. It was weird when they did the camera swapping. Capcom's way more experienced now in 3D realms with Devil May Cry, Okami, Beautiful Joe in a sense. That I think taking Mega Man and putting him in any of those ways would probably be very cool and successful, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because you're not only dealing with a precision platformer, but you're also dealing with an action precision platformer. Mm-hmm. So translating that, either of those aspects separately are difficult enough as is, especially putting it together. So like if you try to make a platformer 3D, that's possible. And then that's when you enter in the Crashes and then the Marios and the Ukuleles and stuff like that, moving around 3D environments in that regard. And that's tough enough as is to make a good one. Mm-hmm. But then on top of that, the action aspect of it, using a blaster, you can't use that traditional format because then you make it 3D. Are you doing kind of like a Metroid Prime-esque kind of look with the blaster out in front of you and you're shooting things in that regard? I feel like that's going to feel very clunky, and that's very like GameCube era type gameplay. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it obviously needs some kind of refresh. You could do a Mega Man 9 and 10 where you harken back to the original feel, but again, that's been done. You could take something that feels like a little bit of the latter games. That's a Mega Man 11. That's been done. You can evolve on it and make it a little bit more edgier. That's, I think, when X and ZX and Zero, that's been done in that regard. You've done the 3D one. You've done Legacy. So I don't know what the solution is. And the thing is, you might find a solution and it might not resonate with people. I don't know. But I do agree with you that this could use a pretty significant gameplay change where maybe you use the Mega Man property in name only. You kind of treat it completely as a spin-off, and then you kind of put it behind a whole new gameplay type. Maybe.
Yeah. Listen, if they have the guts to make that disgusting Mega Man show, the new one.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot what it's called. But you're able to do that with the license. Come on. Let's be real. You did.
Give it to Yacht Club. Maybe they could figure out something cool.
Yeah, give it to someone. Team up again with someone, because there's potential there. That's not a franchise that needs to die. And again, every era has their Mega Man. I know people who their favorite Mega Man games are the NT series, which is bold of them to say, but I get it because of the turn-based, almost card-based system. Like, that's what they're into. They're not into platformers. They're into that. And it makes sense why they would love those games.
Yeah, there's something there for those games.
For sure.
All right, the next one I chose is kind of a weird one because it's not a franchise people in general talk about too much, but we talk about it a lot, and it's Dead or Alive. I'm specifically talking about the fighters, not the volleyball skimpy ones. Mm-hmm. This game is in a tough position. Fighters have, in my opinion, become more and more competitive. There's more and more players now playing at a really high level. Street Fighter's gotten kind of into a renaissance, in my opinion. Mortal Kombat is doing better than ever. You have games like Soul Calibur that are back. Samurai Showdown came back from out of nowhere and released a pretty solid title. You have so many of these players, and I feel like with them competing on such a high level, DOA is having a real hard... Oh, and how could I even forget? Tekken 2 is coming back on a really high level. And I feel like DOA is in a position where they're having trouble competing with those. And if you really look at it, they're having trouble having their own identity. They're not really doing anything that Tekken doesn't necessarily do better, as much as I love DOA. And so they're having kind of an identity crisis. And if you look, they found a weird monetization strategy of kind of making it free to play, but having thousands of dollars worth of DLC. I don't know really what they're doing in that regard. And so I think going forward, they need to find not a gameplay change in the way that it's not going to be a fighter anymore. I don't necessarily think they should become like an RPG, for example, but I feel like each fighter that is popular in the fighting game community right now has its own identity and feel and style to it. And especially when you look at games like Fighters and the Guilty Gear series and BlazBlue and all that. So I think with DOA, they need to find a way to, if you would like A, you need to go to this thing. And if you like style B, you go to this game. And I think DOA needs to offer something to be like, hey, if you're into this kind of style, DOA is for you. Because right now, there's nothing you could really say to point anybody towards Dead or Alive. What do you think?
No, that's very true. And like we were saying, I'm such a fan of that. And I constantly played the newest, which was 6. But it's fine. It does everything fine. I think if there's ever a fighter that needs a complete reboot, it's that series. I think they're just so pigeonholed to putting certain characters in, and they don't really know what to do with them. Even if you go beyond, like, most fighting games sometimes don't even have story modes anymore, but those do push for a certain amount, because you have such a big lore-filled world in DOA, but you're just letting it sit on the table, and you're trying to be stuck with holding it from past games. I think it's time to almost reboot it in a sense, or go back and retell a different story, because that's what Soul Calibur did in their newest edition. Even though you have all these other characters, the main campaign was telling the original story of the two swords. So redo that, because I can tell you right now, I played every single one. I barely know the story. Yeah, I get it. They host a tournament and they do this. I think it's time to really redo and come out new. Stop with the numbers, because people are gonna think I didn't play the first 6 games, so I can't play the 7th. They're rarely, if any, connected. They don't make sense. People die, come back, change names, put a mask on, and they're a different character for no reason. So if there's ever a franchise that needs to be just kind of clean slate, it's them. Go back to
the next one needs to be called Dead or Alive, period.
Yeah, for sure. I think if they're going to continue with their monetization format, then they definitely need to consider it a platform and go almost the route that Killer Instinct did on Xbox One.
Exactly.
Where it was every year or two, you bought a $20 pass, you got a new characters, and it brought a lot of game changes to it. If you look at Killer Instinct Season 1 to where it ended, completely different. There's shadow moves, finishers, all these different things, not just characters and arcade mode based. I think if they're going to do that, I think it's time they either push for a competitive scene or just go to the casual scene.
Super arcadey? Yeah.
Yeah, they have to, because I don't think the last 3 Dead or Alive games, they were never at EVO. Tekken 7 still at EVO. BlazBlue, Cross Tag goes to EVO. All these games that are Dragon Ball Fighters is at EVO. I know most of those are Arc System, and I have my own feelings on Arc System works.
Yeah.
But I think relying on what people buy those games for, and let's be honest, what they buy them for, is not selling it anymore. So doing these free to play and then having, like you're saying, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of DLC. If you didn't buy I have the disc. I bought the disc at launch, and if I wanted the season pass, the first season pass is $100. That's two.
That's
and
crazy.
I think 2 characters, and I don't know, Santa hats for people for Christmas outfits, and something ridiculous. And it's like, so if you're struggling with this franchise, it's time to rejuvenate that franchise, or you put it to bed, because at this point, what are you doing? Because I'd love to see the statistics. Who's buying that DLC? Because Season Pass 2 and 3 are also $100.
Yeah, it's strange because they've seen to either double or triple down on that small subsect of people who, and other Japanese devs have done this too, who are kind of into the sexy gameplay type people, there's the same people who buy these weird RPGs on Vita that like the aspect. Even at one point, like Soul Calibur, for example, was pandering to those type of people with characters like Taki and stuff like that in the outfit she was in. So this is not something that was exclusive to DOA. But as time has progressed and you've seen that being a shrinking niche of the market, you allocate way less focus onto those characters and those styles and focus onto the main core of your audience, which eventually was the FGC Evo watching people. And they doubled down on those people. They made sure the metagame was tight, the combos were tight, everything was there. And again, I'm not a fighting game expert, so I'm not going to try to get too much into that, but you guys know what I'm talking about, like the very deep mechanics of the game. They doubled down on that and offered something that can compete in that arena. And DOA didn't really do that. They tried to keep the exact style from what they were doing, and they're like, hey, I know our gameplay is not the tightest in the world, and there's just not a lot of crazy metagame, but hey, look at her outfit, she looks good, doesn't she? And it's like, it doesn't sell well, and it doesn't even necessarily inspire a loyal fan base, because again, are we seeing diminishing returns on a game-to-game basis? I know sure as hell these newer titles are not selling how the old ones did.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's like, if they want to change for relevance sake, that's cool, but then change for the monetary impact you make on the fighting game community, because no one really cares about you anymore. And if you want to see a 7th game or 8th game in the franchise, then you got to figure out something.
Yeah, that's true, because you're suffering. And then, there is a small fan base that would love this game to be way more popular and sell more, but I don't remember this even hitting charts and stuff like that. And I think I was working at Gamestop when it came out. I could say I had maybe 4 pre-orders, and 2 of them were for this guy who literally pre-ordered every single game that came out. So it
wasn't even in the top fighting games when it came out.
Exactly. I don't know. It's it's stuck in a bad spot. They got to do something. So my last game I had for a franchise that needed a rejuvenation, I guess it was kind of obvious I would go this way. Without my list, I was going to avoid it. 3 Sonic games.
Okay.
So
I knew it was coming.
Because we've yet to get like a really good one. They get so close and they always throw it off. You had Sonic Colors Sonic Colors and Generations are probably the pretty closest ones. Colors had that stupid mechanic, and Generations is too short and had the classic Sonic style. I think it's time to stop that, because Forces on paper should have been kind of good, and I feel like most people said the same thing, that the created character was bad. The classic Sonic levels felt weirdly tacked on, and there was like an awkward amount of them. I think there was like 3 or 4 of them. Like, it felt like that game was originally going to be Generations 2, and I don't know what happened. Everyone kind of liked the Sonic levels, the modern Sonic levels. And I know people have a sort of love-hate relationship with this, and it's because Sega has moved them into just the meme world, and it's just too much. Because I know, Sonic and the Black Knight was, because they're like, oh, why does Sonic have the sword? And that game was fine. People kind of, crap on it for too much for no reason. But if you look back at the fan base, that they, everyone wants Sonic Adventure 3. I don't think that's ever going to happen. We don't need that. But you get close. So not that it completely needs a change, it needs restrictions. Because they get a solid game and then they some reason think, nah, nobody's going to like this. Let's add a Werehog brawler level that makes no sense. Or let's add a nice King Arthur suit and give him a sword. Or, there's the most famous Sonic 06, which was kind of Sonic Adventure 3. Just people didn't like it and it fell apart and it was trash. I just think this is obviously a franchise that exists in 2D style. Fine. We have Mania, we have that team, and it seems like they're probably going to do another Sonic 2D title. So those are fine. I'm not worried about those, and we have the classics. I just think it's time to stop treating your IP like it's a joke. I mean, they put a Sonic t-shirt in Forces, and it was also in the movie. So I think it's time to treat yourself with a little bit more respect on your license, on the license that saved you guys for the most part, because Sega really didn't have anything else. Well, Alex Kidd, Ristar, those aren't names like Sonic. So it's time to try to use your IP and your mascot as an actual mascot, as something to respect, because people just now hate your games and love to crap on your games. Game Grumps play those games because they're so bad. They won't go back and play the good ones. At least I don't recall them going back to play the good ones. They purposely play the bad ones because it makes for entertaining content, and that's great. But Sony would never do that with Ratchet and Clank.
No doubt. No.
So I just think it's time for them to take it serious, and it's not that it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy to make that, but if you're gonna focus on 3D platforming, you can don't be afraid to look at the Crashes, Spirals, some of these other. Bubsy's coming out with games for no reason. Why does yours have to be the joke?
Yeah, I kind of just thought of this. One of the big issues I think with Sonic is that when it first came out and when it had that real cultural zeitgeist moment, one of the big things was this was kind of Sega's Mario.
Yeah.
And so from the beginning, that's what it was treated like, and that's great. And it had 3 phenomenal games back to back on the Genesis for the main core games, and it was amazing. And then somehow they seem to have lost track of that. And instead of treating him how they treated Mario, where they created a universe around them and they kind of doubled down on that fun campiness and they got the tight gameplay and they really, you went there for a certain experience and you got that every single time. Instead, Sonic, for some reason, they tried to push into an edginess. And they had him competing in lanes where he not only didn't belong, but did not fit in to whatsoever.
Yeah.
So they had him in realistic environments, doing things gameplay-wise that the original games did not. Again, if you look at Mario 64, that was an evolution of what he was doing before. Mm-hmm. And if you go from there, like Sunshine and Galaxy and Odyssey, these are all evolutions and improvements upon previous titles and what they set up there. But when Sonic made the 3D jump, these were not the same things mechanically that made him great in the first place. And then from there, they, instead of doubling down and trying to improve on each one, they found a gimmick each time. And they tried to, I guess in the sake of innovation, tried to reinvent him every single time. We'll give him a sword in this one. We'll do a spin-off with a gun here. We'll do another one where they're going through time. We'll do this and we'll do this. And now he's a werehog. And now he's doing this. And now you're a duck woman and there's explosions behind you. And like, it's a whole different thing. And so there was never a real vested interest in improving so much as there was a vested interest in reinventing. And so I think they need to really re-examine what made him good in the first place. How do we evolve on that, but not throw out all the groundwork was there? Again, that original trilogy is still there, and it's still highly regarded. So obviously, it hasn't aged out to the point where people think it's bad now. So, and because Mania came out and it tapped into the exact same thing, and people loved it, so that's still there. So there's a way to do this. They just have not figured out a way, and instead of running to gimmicks, they need to find a way that really resonates with people. How do you make a speed-based platformer in 2020? I don't know. They need to figure that out.
Yeah. In my opinion, what they need to do is, so take I think Unleashed was the first one that kind of did this style, which was that race car Sonic.
Yes.
You got to slow him down a huge amount because he doesn't need to go that fast. For whatever reason, they think they need to do that. Because if you play those original Sonic games, yes, you can kind of trick the system into going so fast that the camera loses you. But those moments are few in between. I think they need to, if you want to keep that angle, widen it up a little bit instead of this 3-lane. I always call it a 3-lane race car because it's 3 lanes and it's hit the triggers to move left and right. I just open it up a little bit. It's funny because in Dreams on PlayStation 4, I will constantly look up Sonic games that people make, and people have made not great. A lot of people remake like adventure levels, but there are people who are making solid experiences. I was like, man, if this was a real developer, they probably would have something. Or if like Sega would like kind of just peek over their shoulder to look at what fans are making, and it's just like close. It's like close. It's like, man, there's so much promise with that. A kind of, even if you think almost like Crash, but a little bit faster. You don't need him to go hundreds of miles an hour. Just a little bit faster. Sure, if you want to have those speed sections where he's boosting, great, no problem. But the initial kind of running, then the small platforming, and then of course the homing attack to certain enemies, that's always really stylish. I just don't see why they think they need to cater to, I don't know, especially all those years they went to this sort of hot topic style where, oh well, let's add an emo Sonic. with Shadow, and let's add the big brawl buff guy, which is Knuckles. Even though he came from the originals, he ended up being like this kind of meathead in later on. I think, yeah, like again, I don't know exactly what the next Sonic game is going to look like. I'm assuming you're getting one this year in 2020. That's what all
most
signs are
likely
pointing to. I just don't. It's time to just treat it with a little bit of respect. Stop making subpar games being like, yeah, this will be fine. People will joke about it. No, don't. This is your mascot. You think Nintendo doesn't make every Mario game good, but every mainline Mario game is pretty good.
Absolutely, yes.
So you would never see what Sonic 06 was. You would never, ever see that with Mario.
Yeah, show me the Mario equivalent to that.
Exactly. There's not. Sure, the spin-offs, the baseballs, and the Mario parties, those aren't always the best. And it's funny because that's where Sonic beats Mario, because the Sonic tennis games and the Sonic kart games, those are usually better than the Mario equivalent.
Oh yeah, those are all really tight.
So why do you treat those really good? And it's because those aren't usually made in-house. Usually Sumo Digital jumps on and does those. Just treat it with respect, and I think you know what you need to do. Also bring back Chow Garden, because that's a small little meta game that you'll get the fans craving for since the beginning.
You get a phone app complimentary to that, like Animal Crossing style,
Yeah,
and
they're
you might got something.
They're sleeping on it.
All right, so my last one is a weird one that people don't talk about. Again, I tried to choose weird series that people weren't talking about, and it's Phantasy Star.
Wow.
Now, some people are going to be like, well, why does Phantasy Star need a gameplay change when it's a dead franchise? But I will correct you. It had a release as early as 2018 and then a Vita release in 2014. So it's not a dead franchise so much as it's an irrelevant franchise. But yeah, they've had a number of games now that haven't really resonated with people. I think the last one that really, really resonated with people was Online 2, probably on the 360 back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, they've had pretty much the exact same gameplay style. And to clarify, there was a massive gameplay change since the Genesis ones, the original hardcore fantasy RPGs. They switched to a more MMO slashy science fiction-esque type style with a lot of anime imagery, and that brought them some success. But since then, has kind of, in my opinion, become very stale. And I feel like they need to re-examine not only the tone they're going for, but the actual feel of the game. Especially in this world where we have games that I feel like borrow a lot from it, like Monster Hunter.
Yeah, for
sure. There is a lane for a game like this, a sci-fi Monster Hunter, if you will. But I feel like they, first off, need to be willing to put the resources behind it. Sega publishes this game, if I'm not mistaken, do they?
I believe they still do, yes.
So this is kind of another case that Sega needs to put the money, the resources, and the care behind it, and actually do some marketing outside of Japan, because they pretty much gave up after the PSP. The PSP Phantasy Star Portable ones came out to a modicum of success, kind of middling. And then Nova was created, the Vita one, and they put zero money into it. They didn't even port it to the United States. It did okay in Japan. And then going forward from there, they've only kind of had like PC ventures and haven't really cared on putting any resources into American equivalent to that. So, do you have any thoughts about Phantasy Star?
So, I know very little because I've always missed these games. I know they still have some titles and people like the classics and all these other things. Style-wise, I think there's nothing really too much like it, like Super Space Anime. I couldn't really see where else this would exist. In a world where you have Code Vein,
yeah, exactly.
Why can't you?
Great point.
I imagine Code Vein a little bit more open, obviously, and in space. What the heck's, well, not space, but you know what I mean. That theme.
That sci-fi theme.
Sci-fi cybernetic theme. Why can't at least get something like that? Because, or like you said, Monster Hunter and all that stuff is so similar, and they get so close. Oh, what slightly reminds me is the Vita game. I can't remember. It's that what's the heck that Vita game?
Freedom Wars?
Freedom Wars. Thank you.
Yes.
So
okay.
Freedom Wars. So I just feel like with those games, Freedom Wars really only suffered because it was stuck on Vita, and I feel like at some point we'll get a port eventually.
It's an amazing game. They'd be stupid not to.
It's super good. I actually just I recharged my Vita getting ready for Twin Breaker, and I can't stop playing Freedom Wars. Super good. So like the style's there, and the anime, you're always gonna get that anime style. People love that style. They love creating their own characters in that style. So if it is Sega who's in charge of that, they're leaving, like we constantly say, they're just leaving a fan base and money pushed to the side, because that game style, I mean, look over Capcom, Monster Hunter. That franchise for so long was doing nothing in America. And then come Monster Hunter World, and it sells just tons.
I mean, it's doing so well. An expansion like Iceborne is one of the best-selling things of the year. Like, that's insane.
It's their most sold game, beating out Street Fighter 2, which has been selling for, look how long that's been selling. So,
and how many iterations, too. Like, that's crazy.
Exactly. So it blows my mind where, again, though I don't have the super nostalgia and compassion and love of the series, I see it and I'm like, man, that looks like Freedom Wars or Monster Hunter, Code Vein now. Why aren't you guys giving the people what they want? And I know it's coming back sort of in a sense, or they're porting online too to Xbox or something like that.
They're bringing that over in some capacity.
Yeah, I just don't, because I know it's kind of lives on in other formats. I think now it's the time more than ever, with this constantly online and these, living on updates, these living games. That's a game that just fits the formula so well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd love to see it back. Gameplay style change. They got to do it.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. A long show this week, over an hour and a half. We beat our record.
Yeah, there we go. It was a juicy filled news week. Actually,
not bad for a remote show too.
Yeah.
Just a heads up for you guys who are still listening. We'll at least the next show, but maybe even the one after that will be remote, so there won't be any video component. But once I'm out of quarantine, we'll be sure to have him over here, and we'll be filming back to our regular set.
Yep.
And in the meantime, we're gonna have supplementary gameplays up, just solo, but just the same amount of videos each week, so there won't be any change in that regard on you guys' end. So thank you guys for listening. This is Jabril, and I'm with
Steve. I hope you guys had a good day.
All right. See you guys. This is a NeoVintage podcast. Bye.